Now, somebody who is close to the investigation on the Ethiopian air crash, has listened to the cockpit voice recorder, and they leaked this information from the investigation to one of the most reputable news organizations in the world, Reuters. Now, of course, a reputable news organization, with a reputation to protect, will rarely make mistakes. They will check and double check any information they receive. And therefore, they are much harder to fool than maybe another news organization. Please bear that in mind. So this source told Reuters that what was in the cockpit voice recorder was that a voice from the cockpit of the ill-fated Boeing 737 MAX Ethiopian Airlines requested permission to climb to 14,000 feet. The voice said that the aircraft had a flight control problem, and that is why they wanted to climb. And the voice sounded nervous. I have to repeat that because it's very important. And the voice sounded nervous. Okay, we'll come back to that. Now, the reason why the pilot was requesting permission to climb is because the higher you are, the more time you have to make decisions and to save the aircraft. In other words, in most cases in a crisis, the higher you are up in the air, the better. Now, the Reuters source was not familiar with the voice of Captain Yared, the person who's on the controls of the ill-fated aircraft. But they said only one voice was consistently heard throughout the relevant section of the cockpit voice recorder. And then, no more than 2 minutes later, the voice from the aircraft came again. Brake, brake. Of course, this signals that non-urgent communication should cease. And of course, that meant the pilot was very busy trying to save the situation, struggling. We have to assume struggling with the MCAS. And then the source again says he sounded very scared. The voice then requested permission to return to the airport, and to turn right, because turning left would go to the city, turning right would be back to the airport. And that was the last communication from the pilot. Now, I find the part where the source said that the voice sounded scared a little more than disturbing. Why? The source admits that they were not familiar with the person who was speaking, not familiar with the voice even. And although they were not familiar with the voice, they were able to come to a conclusion that the voice sounded scared. I find that odd, because in other investigations, in case you didn't know, sometimes those listening to the voice recorder will ask people, other pilots, who are familiar with the pilots who are on that aircraft, to join them in listening in. Why? Because they need somebody in the room who was familiar with the individuals involved. These people who are familiar with the pilots of the particular ill-fated aircraft, whose voice recorder is being listened to, would be in a better position to judge and say what emotions may have been going through the particular pilot's mind as they spoke, because they're familiar with them. But here we are with a case of a source who admits they're not familiar with the person. Neither are they familiar with their voice. And yet, they are so quick to pass judgment that they sounded scared. Sounding scared is natural. However, in an investigation, sounding scared implies panic. And of course, somebody who has panicked cannot think straight. Somebody who has panicked is unlikely to make the correct decisions that would save the aircraft. To me, that would suggest a source trying to sell us a certain rhetoric in advance. In other words, we're being prepared for a theory, or rather conclusion, of pilot error. After all, the pilot sounded scared. The pilot must have panicked. And therefore, later on, if we get evidence that actually the pilot was familiar with the MCAS, which he most probably was. Yeah, because after the Indonesian airline accident, Boeing must have spoken to the other operators of the aircraft to inform them of this software, yeah, and what to do, how to switch it off. And what is even more interesting in my view are the leakages of the two different information that we've gotten, yeah, close to the investigation. If you look at both of them, they already seem to be pointing us in a certain direction very early in the investigation. According to me, it would seem the work of a clever fixer. And it would seem the whole intention, yeah, is not to get to the truth. The whole intention is to save an aircraft manufacturer from some very serious allegations. And what makes me even more worried is the fact that not too long ago, about 10 years ago, there were some whistleblowers who worked within Boeing, yeah, who ended up being fired. Why were they fired? Because they pointed to the quality of the parts, yeah, being taken from a subcontractor, Ducommun Incorporated, yeah, that were being used to put together the 737 NGs, not the MAX, the 737 NGs. And these parts were faulty, yeah, and non-conforming, yeah, so that when you put together the aircraft, they didn't fit properly, and therefore they created a danger, according to these whistleblowers. What I find very disturbing is that this is at least one case where this particular manufacturer has been put on the spot, yeah, over quality and safety issues to do with the manufacture of the aircraft. And I'm sure you will also find this disturbing. But what I urge you, yeah, is to join me and put on your thinking caps, yeah, so that when we get new information, we analyze it and we think about it. We don't just swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. Because I don't think if we do that, we'll be able to get to the truth of what really happened. And if the truth is that it was pilot error, so be it. But let it be the truth. If the truth is that African pilots, yeah, are not competent to fly passenger jets, so be it. And let's get them out of aircrafts, commercial aircrafts. And let's have only competent pilots, yeah, as long as that is the truth. On this channel, and I believe I need to make this very clear, we're not interested in pushing any theory. We're not interested in pushing any agenda. We're interested in only one thing, and one thing alone: the truth. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.